Okay, welcome to Keen 360 session on how low-code CRM is creating new opportunities in the life sciences industry for biotech and pharmaceutical companies. As you can see in this agenda, we're going to be doing quick introductions, and then David, am going to be going through our point of view on third wave CRM, which is being driven by low-code platforms such as Creatio. And then we're going to level set on the state of CRM in pharma and biotech, life sciences, with a summary of how we got to where we are in the current state. And that'll be my colleague, Zahid. Zahid will also then talk about how the advent of low-code CRM in combination with challenges that have arisen with the legacy platforms that are dominant in pharma, how that creates opportunities for firms that might want to think about either complementing their Battleship, Viva kind of platforms, or maybe their biotech, they're emerging from trials, they're considering what they want to use as they go into commercial operation. All right, that's the general theme, and then we'll close with a wrap-up and Q&A. But first, we'll do introductions. And I would like to let my colleague Zahid introduce himself first. And by the way, we were limited on our video capabilities from the locations from which we're streaming. And so Zahid is going to be joining us by audio, but not by video. Zahid?
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Zahid Khan. I'm a partner at Keen 360. I have about just over a decade of experience in the pharmaceutical, actually in the life sciences space, and about close to 2 decades of experience working in CRM. I've seen a transition from on-prem solutions and the evolution into cloud and into what we're seeing today also. So I'm excited to be here, excited to participate in Accelerate with Creatio.
Great. Thanks, Zahid. And I, David Lasher, am a long-time IT guy. After coming out of business school, I took the business analyst and PM project manager track, ended up being a partner at IBM and their CRM consulting organization. And it was at that point I started working with organizational leaders to figure out what they could do with IT and CRM and how to bring it about. And then I would lead the teams that did the work. I've subsequent to IBM, was CIO, SVP in some private equity-backed portfolio companies, and then spent most recently, before joining Keen 360, a couple of years as CIO and COO at Maryland's Department of Health, a $14 billion organization. So a lot of experience between Zahid and me in the CRM space, in the pharma space, and in the healthcare space. And what we want to do now is quit talking about us and start talking about the opportunities ahead of those contemplating low code in this life sciences space. Let me start by setting the table on our point of view on what third wave CRM is. Right? First wave CRM, I was a participant in it coming out of the .com days. First wave CRM was taking relational database management systems and applying them to the problem and challenge of managing contacts and accounts, people and organizations. You know, mostly initially within sales organizations, also marketing and service, of course. We see a few logos here. On the one hand, at that point in time in wave one, harnessing modern data, what then were emerging as widely available database management systems. At the departmental scale were solutions like Sales Logics, in which I was actually certified. At the enterprise scale were solutions like SAP, Oracle Siebel, PeopleSoft, and Zahid and I spent much of our careers at IBM implementing Siebel/Oracle for Fortune 500, Fortune 100 types of firms. So modern one was harnessing the power of the database and reporting and analytics thereupon. Wave two was Salesforce, right? But why? What created the opportunity for Salesforce, or to say it a different way, what is it that Salesforce brought to market that solved some key problems. And what they did was not bring any special new CRM functionality to market. In fact, their functionality was light or thin compared to certainly a Siebel or an SAP. But what they did was brilliant. And the brilliance was that they addressed problems of infrastructure complexity and financial cost. So on the infrastructure side, what Salesforce, of course, did was they became the first known organization, software vendor that put their solution exclusively in the cloud. Right? So they removed the problem of running your data center and servers and infrastructure management and cost. And on cost, in addition, and very important, is they did a favor to the CFOs of the world, and what they did by having a subscription-based model for the software licenses is they removed tremendous upfront costs that typically were counted as capital costs and turned them into smaller, steadier operational costs, right? A lot more predictability. And so it was the combination of the financial model and the infrastructural simplicity of Salesforce that was in our opinion, the key competitive advantage and innovation that they brought to market. Right? They really started sweeping the market and becoming who we know them as in the enterprise space back during the last downturn of 07 and 09, depending on how you want to market. And so it's been 10 years of dominance for them in Wave 2. But now we believe that Wave 3 is upon us. And what Wave 3 is the new opportunity to take advantage of so-called low-code CRM platforms, BPM and CRM platforms like Creatio. Creatio is not the only one. There are others, but in our experience at Keen 360 and working with and evaluating a number of such platforms over the last couple of years, since early 2019, we really like what we're seeing from Creatio and what we're getting from the Creatio platform. But what's special and different about these Wave 3 platforms? What's different is two things. One is they were born to support workflow. They weren't born like Salesforce was as a database. They were conceived as and brought about as platforms to model work processes and support workflow of users and people outside the system as well. And second, besides the workflow orientation, it's the low-code configuration. In other words, not just anybody, but business analysts who understand object models and can jump into a wizard, configure a page, can get a tremendous amount done with modern low-code platforms. As they've kind of hit a tipping point, they reached a critical mass point. Most all OutSystems, Creatio, others, about 2 years ago, maybe 3. The long-sought goal of being able to deliver enterprise caliber applications with low-code tools, that value proposition, that goal was achieved in recent years, 12, 36 months, depending on how you want to look at it. So that's where we are. And this new wave is indeed new, and it's creating opportunities in all industries. But what we want to do is I'm going to turn it over to Zahid, our expert in life sciences and big pharma, and he's going to talk a little bit about where we are with CRM in life sciences today, driven by big pharma for the most part, and then what kinds of opportunities these low-code platforms and Creatio are creating for organizations in this space. So with that, Zahid, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, David. So as David so nicely put, over the last 2 decades or so, and in some cases going even further back, there's been this evolution, right? And we've been tracking this as you're looking at software going from on-prem, so that's your wave 2, then it goes into cloud with wave 1, and going to the cloud with wave 2, and then now where we are with these the low-code, no-code solutions. As that evolution is happening, so is the market, right? And so is the needs of the organization, and it's becoming where we are right now. It's becoming sort of this plethora of solutions that are out there. But if you look at this chart, what this is still saying is there are still some dominant players, right? So, for example, what we're seeing is Veeva has a very strong hold in a lot of big pharma. IQVIA have a solution that was launched about 24 months ago or so, maybe less than that. And they're trying to take a bite of that market away from Veeva. And, talking about IQVIA for a minute, IQVIA is a data provider, and they're in pretty much every single pharma company, especially in the United States. But what happens there now is they're trying to use that footprint to offer a CRM solution, which they're calling OCE, Orchestrated Customer Engagement. They haven't had much luck because Veeva has such a strong hold on that, to the point where in a few recent interactions with some of our clients and potential clients, we've learned that they're almost giving it away, right? Just to get a chance to, or it's very, very low cost, just to get into the door.
Hey, Zahed? Zahed, yeah, on that Zahed. I mean, they're not giving it away for free, of course, but I think the key point is that we're seeing that the OCE product doesn't stand on its own as a platform that biotech and smaller pharma are considering right now.
That is absolutely fair, right? Even look at Veeva. It's almost the same thing, right? These are all solutions that are built on Salesforce, by the way. They're still relying on that underlying platform. Looking at this chart also, if you look at, there are a number of other players here. But there's also that big blue area that you see there, where it says other. There's a lot of opportunities for new players to the game, or a different approach to CRM. And that.
Hey, Zahed. Hey, Zahed. Zahed, can I put a twist on that? Sorry to interrupt, but my twist would be, from the one side, the vendors, there's opportunity, but the only reason there's opportunity is it's pretty clear that the incumbents aren't meeting all the needs of the organizations and the companies in this domain, right? In life sciences.
Absolutely. So that's a really good point, right? So what, just going back a few years, actually going back to where we talked about wave 1, right? So wave 1 going into wave 2, what was that transition? What were the catalysts that basically created the need for Salesforce? It was because those solutions from wave 1 were very heavy. Cost millions of dollars to implement, costly to maintain, and they weren't very flexible. So as a result, when Salesforce came on the market in the mid 2000s, it was a great solution. It solved the problem. It was very cost effective, and it eliminated a lot of the infrastructure costs. Well, now we're looking at wave 3, and this is where we are right now looking at the chart. This is what the industry looks like, right? So now there are another set of challenges, or there are another set of opportunities that have been created that allows new players coming to the game, basically a great point of entry. So if we look at those opportunities, it span. We put it basically 3 buckets. Pausing there. We go to the next slide.
Yep. Sorry. There you go. There you go, Zahed.
So what are these opportunities, right? So we talked about this wave 3, or is this opportunity for a low code, no code sort of solution to hit the market. Now, why is that? What are the opportunities we see? Is a solution that is the right size with the right functionality for more specific groups within a pharmaceutical organization, such as your key account or your strategic customer groups. These are groups that have specialized need that either you don't necessarily want to spend the time or money that it costs today to reconfigure Veeva to satisfy this. So there's that opportunity there to create a solution or provide a solution for that small group. For organizations that are transitioning from clinical trials going into commercial operations now. These organizations are at a point where, spending an astronomical amount of money in today's market on a software may not necessarily be part of their plan, right? They have significant other spend that they need to think about. So there's an opportunity there for these solutions to come in and say, we could fill in this market. Viva and Salesforce is not necessarily a cheap solution. Sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, to put the emphasis on your point, it's just at the moment of emerging from trials and launching commercial operations, forming your commercial team, that capital is most scarce and needs to be put to the best purposes, right? And big pharma, they've got their revenue streams, and not that they're not looking at the bottom line and costs. I mean, they are, but there's a moment of transition for biotech as they emerge, where that leap all the way to Salesforce with its complexity and costs might not be something they want to do. And heretofore, before low-code CRM, even though they might have been reluctant or it might have been premature to make that kind of leap, they really had no choice. I mean, I think what we're trying to say here is that there's a new option now. It's a viable option, and it's full capability and conserving capital, right, at that moment. So
the other thing, even within big pharma, there are groups within the organizations that are now operating with somewhat of a sales component to their job. Right. You may have the support teams that are supporting the field sales rep, dealing with the inquiries that are coming in. To a degree, you have certain internal organizations deal with speaker programs and so on that also have a CRM-like need. Those are also opportunity areas where a solution can come in to satisfy that need. Now, with those opportunity areas that we talked about, finding the right solution or the right size solution to satisfy these needs, you also have to ensure that whatever solution you're coming to the table with, it needs to be agile and flexible to satisfy those needs, right? And that brings us to number two, which is, how do we come to the market, or how do we enter this opportunity area and ensure that, okay, it's not about replacing Viva. It's not necessarily about trying to topple the behemoth. It's how do you complement them? So how do you ensure that for those groups within those organizations that may already have a Viva or an OCE or a Salesforce, right? But they were looking for something that is more economical, that is faster and easier, that can also complement the solution that they have. That's where we find that there is a gap today. The other area,
and it's ahead.
Is ahead before we move to the other area?
Before we move to the other area, right? If in that case, we're all working from home. My wife's sneezing behind us. In that case, for the complement, we're talking more about the established pharma, right? And the fact that reality is that those platforms, the configuration thereof, was mainly for the field sales organization and the management chain thereof. And the idea is that, look, there's a chance for complementing the battleship with some more nimble cruisers for selected teams like key account management teams, right?
Right,
is that correct?
And in sort of that same line of thinking with complementing, for the smaller organization, it may be looking at providing a solution, at the start that fits the need at that time. And as that organization grows and become, several products now in the mix, and multiple markets that they're covering, then maybe transitioning over to a Salesforce and Viva may be the thing that they need to do. So you have to ensure that when we say complement, it's not just about running in parallel, but it may be somewhere down the line that there's a transition that's needed. But that area of opportunity still exists today, and it's actually a pretty big one because we see more and more biotechs deciding to go at it as opposed to selling out to big pharma or merging into big pharma. One of the other points within this sort of this line of thinking with regards to flexibility and agility, it's the solution or the opportunity. The solution needs to fit into or needs to be able to deploy fairly quickly. It needs to be able to, not just in terms of speed, but in terms of can we have our business analysts doing the configuration and getting it up and running for the sales teams? Meaning not relying on a full stack tech development team, right? And that's where, especially a solution like a Creatio, which us at Keen 360, we were actually able to stand up our solution, which is going to be hitting the market in the coming weeks, with just a number of business analysts. We actually didn't need any full stack developers to do this. So configuration analyst.
Configuration
correct.
Right?
Configuration analyst. Now, the thing sort of keeping on this or continue to focus on number 2 here, which around agility is, look, the industries are changing. These organizations are changing very rapidly. So whatever that solution is you need to ensure that it is flexible enough and be able to adapt and evolve with the changing needs of the organization. And you need to be able to do so at a fairly quick pace and fairly affordable, which brings us to number 3, speed and affordability.
Hey, Zahid, before speed enough, I have to put my CIO hat on for a moment, right? My former CIO hat, put it back on, take it off the table. And I would emphasize, for anybody who might misconstrue what we're suggesting, is that we are not suggesting application proliferation, right? Whether life sciences or other industries, application consolidation has been a strategic priority within IT for a decade or more. But what we are saying is that application consolidation can go too far, right? There can be more harm than good done at a certain point. And so what we're suggesting is that very, very judiciously, and arm with IT, the question of whether a complementary integrated platform might allow the needs of some teams to be better served than they are today, right? We're definitely not suggesting a going back to a wild west of 6, 8, 10 different applications for managing your sales organization, service organization, and
right. I mean,
data.
it's the right tool for the job. It's the right solution for that given group within your organization. And the way technology is, or the availability of technology today, I mean, look at it as why you have so many apps on your iPhone. The idea is the right app, the right application for your need. And that is what we're saying, is that, look, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to try to force feed everything into that one CRM solution that you have. That there may be some uniqueness within smaller groups within your organization. And that's where we're saying maybe a solution like a Creatio would be a better fit, and it'd be a more economical fit. Moving on to sort of the point I'm trying to make with number 3 here, which is speed and affordability. At the end of the day, a rapid implementation is going to be key. Ensuring rapid adoption through a minimal to limited, let's say limited change management to ensure quick adoption. And of course, David with his CIO hat on, it's ensuring that it fit in with the economics of the entire organization and within your CRM budget per se. So the point is that it's not saying, look, we're going to be replacing Viva, or you're going to be ensuring that you're adding in an alternative. It's you're complementing it. That's where a significant portion of this opportunity exists, but it needs to be affordable at the end of the day.
Zahid, I would just add that it's on the implementation and adoption. Those have always been objectives, and with the low code, that implementation can be more rapid. You really can do crawl, walk, run. In other words, implement what the organization initially needs, and then precisely because it's low code, get feedback, make changes over time. So rapid implementation is key. And if you have a pre-configured industry-specific application on top of a low-code platform like Creatio, as Keen 360's business is and our products are, that can speed the implementation even more. So the point is that there's opportunity for even more rapid implementation these days with these types of platforms than has been possible in the past. And the adoption, I would just like to add that the born cloud native, usability a target and priority from the outset, the adoption can be very largely, never completely, but self-learning along with some learning assets. You can get mobile apps, you can get adoption rapidly, don't have to really break out the stick as much as has traditionally been the case. I mean, the key here is end users that we're seeing are actually liking these kinds of platforms. That's the key point I would emphasize.
One last thing to add to this, and I know we got to move on, David, but that is also where the industry is. If you look today at what's happening in the pharmaceutical market and the biotech market, there are more companies launching biotechs. There's more labs going, basically launching into the commercial space than ever before. I mean, we're seeing that is not made of. You can look that up online and you can see today what's going on. Also, compliance is becoming stricter and stricter as more and more of these companies. So ensuring that your team are ready and be able to adapt quickly to the changes that's happening in industry is a very key part to this. So that rapid implementation and to be able to do the configuration with some business analysts or configurators is a key part for you to get the solution out to your teams as quickly as possible.
Yep. And I'm looking at the clocks ahead. I think we need to wrap up. As we move into wrap up and look at the questions, unless you want to make another point, I realize there's one more point that we ought to again emphasize for our CIO friends. So I've got that hat on. When we're talking about leveraging business analyst configurators, we are talking arm in arm with IT. There's no question about that. We're just saying that there is the teamwork has to be there. No shadow IT. It's just that there's opportunity to do more together than there was before with low code. So Zahid, anything else, or should we turn to a couple questions that have come in? Okay. Well, the question wasn't quite this brief, but it raised the very good point that we didn't think about in our remarks ahead, which is compliance. And you can hardly have, in fact, you cannot have a life sciences solution that does not meet internal policies, external regulations. We don't need to belabor what's required. We just emphasize that, at least on the Creatio platform, the tools that are required for compliance in all respects are available. I would mention that who sees and does what within the application can be controlled down to the field level. I would emphasize that the database itself is encrypted, right? So that's good. And then from your cyber perimeter, if you will, Creatio at least is hosted on AWS or Azure, leverages all of the cyber tools available on those platforms standard. And for those who are HIPAA-minded, I was at the Department of Health and was very HIPAA-minded. And the Creatio platform, anyway, can be deployed on its own server within AWS, which makes achieving HIPAA compliance straightforward. It's never easy, right? But everything that you need everything that you need is available architecturally and within as tools within the platform. So pretty good news on compliance, and we could have a longer conversation on that in a different session. And then Zahid, again, I'm sensitive to the time. We do have one question here that says, are you saying that these new low code CRM applications are straight out replacement for Aviva at a larger pharma? That's the question that came in. So maybe we need to clarify ourselves.
No, not at all. So we're not saying that we're going to go in and replace Viva at the much larger level. The idea here is that the opportunity exists to complement Viva by fulfilling the needs of more specialized group within large pharma.
Yep. So I would say Yep. And I would say that the difference of even from 2 or 3 years ago, the difference being low code, is that there is a strategic option on the table now
Yeah.
that is new. And it ought to be engaged upon, and maybe the option will fit for some organizations and for some not. But we think one size fits all for CRM in pharma was maybe necessary in the past, but not so much
Right.
anymore.
And the economics around it supports that 100%.
Hey, Zahid, we're at the end of our time, so let's thank our audience again for taking the time to be with us, and encourage anybody who wants to reach out and have a longer, friendly conversation on these or other topics. We at Keen 360 would love to hear from you.